everybody say hi, Ty? Let's do that better. Can everybody say hi, Ty?
Hi,
Ty. So Ty is a high school student at Berkeley High. He's a former student of mine and a person, independent of that I admire tremendously. A number of reasons for my admiration for Ty. One of them is that his work in this classroom and the teammate that he was to other students was absolutely first rate. Every student in the class loved to be in Ty's group because Ty is incredibly powerful intellectually, and he's incredibly kind, and he does a really great job of making everybody feel comfortable in any group situation. So you guys will feel very comfortable with Ty, which is fantastic. But it's going to be really important that we do a great job of making Ty feel comfortable as well, right? Yeah. So who can tell me as an audience what are some things that you could do that would make Ty feel really comfortable while he's delivering this presentation? I need more hands in the air. What could you do? If you don't know what a good audience is right now, it's going to be very difficult for you when you go into business meetings or any sort of meeting where you're trying to impress other people, or really anytime you're interacting with somebody and you need to have cultural skill. What's one thing you have to have that's a cultural skill in our culture when you're interacting with another person? I need hands. Let's go. You need to be good at what? Most of you are doing a great job with me right now, and I appreciate that. Maria, what do we have to have? Eye contact, yeah. Try to be able to track with your eyes. Good. What else?
we need to listen.
Yeah. Good. Good. Yeah. Yep. Posture is really important. If you go into a business meeting and you're like all slouched over to the side, people are going to notice, right?
Don't interrupt him.
Yeah. Don't interrupt. Okay. One more thing which is not up there is not having stuff in your hands, because oftentimes when you have stuff in your hands, you'll fidget with it, and that'll make people feel like you're not paying attention. Okay? The only person who will be fidgeting is Kai. She's doing a favor with me, but I still want her to hear you. So if you hear the rustling over there, that's not. All right. Okay. I'll give that back to you. Sound good? All right. So many of you are enrolled in Spanish already or French already. That's great. Those are lovely languages. What I want you to know is you can also take Mandarin Chinese in high school. I did not have the option to take Mandarin in high school. I only had two options. I could either take French or Spanish. And honestly, I was not really interested in either one of those. So I took Spanish because it was more useful in California, but I was not intrinsically motivated in Spanish, unfortunately. So if I had had access to Mandarin in high school, I think I would probably be quite fluent in Mandarin now. But as it was, I had to learn it later in the years leading up to when I went to China for a year. And by the time I was done in China, living in China, I was pretty fluent in Mandarin. But unfortunately, I have not had an opportunity to use it since I came back in the year 2000, so I had mostly forgotten it all. But you have the opportunity, which I did not have, to take it in high school if you so choose. Ty's going to provide some information about that, but he's also just going to tell you about what it's like to travel in Taiwan, correct? And also what it's like to be at Berkeley High. So it's a little bit like the hot seat of wisdom, but with an extra special twist. All right? Okay, Ty, you're on.
So, ni hao. Hello, everybody. My name's Ty. Mr. Jokela introduced me pretty well. I'm a student. I was here for 3 years, and now I'm a sophomore at Berkeley High. I'm also Trey's brother.
Did you guys know that? Yeah. You've gotten it.
So why am I here? I'm going to talk about a few things. Towards the end, you guys can ask me any questions about Berkeley High in general, because I don't really talk about that a whole lot. But if you have any questions about like the transition from being to Berkeley High, which is pretty important, feel free to ask if you have any questions. And then I'm going to talk about the Chinese program. A lot of people don't know about it at Berkeley High. It's a really small class, and so people just kind of never see it and then go on to Spanish or French. And then I had a special experience with the language, with my travels, and the culture, and so I'm going to share that with you, share that as well. So what inspired me to learn Chinese? So a few things inspired me. A friend, I was in 8th grade, he was a year older than me, he was taking Chinese, and he told me about how there's no grammar pretty much. He talked to me about how you don't have to conjugate verbs and how it's kind of just memorization. And I really kind of believed him at the time. I don't know why, but I kind of believed him, and I thought, man, that sounds pretty easy. And I kind of signed up spur of the moment, and then I realized, man, that's really not what it is. And I looked into it, and it looked really interesting, and I was like, I didn't regret what I had chosen. I thought, man, this is pretty cool. This is interesting, but it's not as easy as he made it out to be. Another core reason I chose it was really different than what all my friends were doing at the time. They were all kind of choosing what they thought was going to be the easiest or what they thought was going to be the most useful, which actually Mandarin is the most spoken language in the world, and it's probably because mainland China has so many people in it, but it does open up a lot of doors in the future. And then I also was just curious with the area. I hadn't known a ton about China or Chinese-speaking countries before going into the class, but I still was super interested in that area, and I was excited to kind of dive in.
Now I know how to convince kids to take Chinese. I have to tell them that it's the easiest one. Chinese, did you guys all hear that? Chinese is the easiest language to take in high school because there's no conjugation.
So this is a little example of how Chinese works. It's not all like this, but this is a really kind of main component of learning. And so this is Sen Lin, which means forest in Chinese. And each of these smaller characters here are called radicals. And in this case, this is mu, that's the radical mu, it means tree. And so there's a ton of mu radicals here, and all of them together, it's like a lot of trees, which is a forest. So it's kind of like there's a logical sense of learning, and you can kind of put things together yourself and kind of learn on the fly. And it's a really, really helpful tool when you're taking tests or doing other things, because you can kind of think about it logically. It's not just all memorization. So what is Chinese like at Berkeley High? So at Berkeley High, unlike other classes where you're gonna have a different teacher pretty much every year, and it's gonna be hit or miss, if it's a great teacher, a bad teacher, or someone that's really hard. You're gonna have one teacher for all 4 years, one student AP. Her name is Miss Chen. She's an amazing teacher, so there's no doubt that you're gonna get someone that's not so great. And you're also gonna grow with that class that you're with. And then the next point is, it's a stressful class. I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be hard, but with effort, you're still gonna be able to easily go through it and have a lot of fun while doing it. One of the coolest parts about the class is how creative Miss Chen is. She creates the most insane assignments and projects for you to do. I remember recently I made a 3D house for our rooms unit where we were talking about we had to learn Chinese rooms and furniture. Recently, we had to do a weather person project where we had to dress up as weather people and do the forecast in Chinese. So she really comes up with some crazy stuff, and it seems really difficult at the time, but when you're doing it, you realize you're kind of having fun, and it turns out to be not so bad of a time. You never know what the day will be like. She always has something planned that's radically different from the next day. You're not just like gonna learn a few characters one day and then learn some more characters the next day. She has so many different activities planned, and they're all different from each other day by day, that you really are excited to come into class every day. It's not something like you're getting dragged into class and it's something like some of your other classes that you might have. It's something that you're really excited to attend. It's extremely rewarding. So being able to kind of realize you're starting to be able to put things together and speak Chinese is one of the best feelings. Like, you kind of subconsciously put things together after a few weeks and a few months, and a few years almost, that you realize you're kind of speaking Chinese and you're able to say these sentences, and it's amazing. It's one of the best feelings. And so it's not just a language class, it's also a culture class. So every Friday, we learn about the culture, and we watch movies, we do art projects, we do all these different things related to culture and food, that you're not just learning the language, you're kind of really going in depth with the country.
Okay. So a couple things that I want to point out to you that are really important, okay? What you put into something is generally what you get out of it. So if you challenge yourself and you throw yourself into something, generally you get a ton out of it. And if you kind of do something halfway and you're like, yeah, and you don't have that intrinsic motivation, generally you don't have that much fun and it's not that great. You know what I'm saying? So what Ty is saying is that you get a lot out of this class because you put a lot into it. And it sounds like Ms. Chen also puts a ton into it. And I would guess that because she puts a ton into it, it's pretty clear that she's having a lot of fun.
Definitely.
As well. Okay? So that's a really nice perk. I didn't realize there was one teacher for the whole thing. So you really do have a chance to form a serious relationship, and you know you're gonna have a good teacher each year. We're gonna take questions in a minute. All right.
So major pros that I could kind of just come up with were, I kind of touched on it before, it's a small class, so you're able to create bonds with not just the teacher, but also your classmates. So you kind of grow with them each year, you can ask them questions. When you're presenting projects, it doesn't really feel like something all too intense. It's kind of you're just talking to your friends. It's really engaging content. I was saying this Chen's super creative. You're always going to like what you're doing. And then it should be your main focus, but it looks great when applying. 16% of the world's population, which is 1.2 billion people, speak Chinese. So it opens up a ton of doors in the future that you just wouldn't have if you weren't able to speak the language. English is in third place, 335 million, which is really far off than Chinese. And then Spanish is something like 400 million. Yeah. The only real con I could come up with is that it's difficult. If you're really not trying and you're kind of just coming to class like not with no effort, then it's gonna be hard for you. You're gonna be stressed out. But like Mr. Jokela said, what you put in is what you're gonna get out. So if you're putting in a lot of effort, you're gonna have a ton of fun. You're gonna learn so much.
One thing to keep in mind is you may remember that I told you about studies show that actually the #1 predictor of academic success for students, it's not their parents, it's not their teachers, it's their peer group. So if you are surrounding yourself with peers who are highly motivated and working hard and getting great education, you will also generally do that. Does not say that parents are not important and teachers aren't important. They are. Those are all factors that play a role in it. But the #1 factor is who you're surrounded by. Would you say in general, can you tell us a little bit about the students in that class, what they're like?
They're amazing. So it's basically it's small, so you know everybody like really well. They're great students. Like I know most of them are really engaged with all of their classes, not just Chinese, and they're all excited to learn in all of their classes. So it's definitely a class that you can kind of fall back on the students and really kind of get help from them.
Sounds like it's a community.
Yeah, it's definitely a community. The best way to learn. So, I don't know if Mr. Jokela has told you, but I remember when I was in his class, he used to talk about travel and it being the best way to learn. And so, you really get this opportunity when being a Chinese student because you have this amazing way to travel with all your students and you can go to a Chinese speaking country. So, I was a freshman when I did it, and we went to Taiwan. So, Taiwan is, the terrain is super varied. So it goes from beaches, there's mountains, there's tropical like rainforest, cities. We flew into Taipei, it's at the very top, and then we got on a bus and we drove around the dotted line. So we pretty much drove around the entire island. This was during spring break, so it was a week's time. So we were in the bus a lot, but we were stopping so much, and we pretty much stopped like in every single different like kind of type of climate that there was. So this is how we traveled. This was our bus. It was pretty large. There's lots of people. One of the main ways to travel, there's tons of tourists in Taiwan from mainland China, and so there's a lot of these buses that go around. You can see them. Ours was bright pink, so we could always see it, which is helpful. So there it is in the parking lot, where basically this was at Sun Moon Lake, and we kind of stopped and like watched tour buses were there. So one of the cool places we got to eat at was this dumpling place that made the dumplings in front of us.
Shalom,
They serve-
I miss
yeah.
it so much. I
Yeah,
used to
it
eat,
was amazing.
so you'll hear stories about this, but I used to eat shalom bao every single morning. And
Yeah.
all the other teachers in the Chinese school would laugh at us because we would eat the same thing every morning. I would ride my bicycle out, go to the little restaurant, get my shalom bao, bring it back. It was so delicious.
Yeah, it's good. A few nights, one of the coolest places to eat was at the night market. So we were given about $5 US, and we were able to just go pick out any food that we wanted. There was just crazy options, and some weren't that great, but some were really, really good. So here's just some options. Like, there's tons of seafood. Here's like oysters and shrimp, but
Quiet hand, every single person in the classroom. Why do you think there's tons of seafood in Taiwan? Quiet hand. Apply your knowledge. Madalena?
Because they're surrounded by water and then it's
Yeah. Because they're a what, everybody?
Island.
Yeah. Great job, Madalena. Thank you. That looks delicious. I don't want to go to the next photo, but I'm gonna. Uh-oh. It doesn't want me to go to the next photo.
so there's some more. This fried lobster. Okay, and then the most common like street vendor that we saw was they were just selling fruit, and so there was just all these random like crazy fruits. We never knew what they were called. They just always be something new. We'd buy the newest one that we saw, and so they're all. I think this was like some form of dragon fruit or something like that. And that was the most familiar as pineapple. This dish had like actual like intact fish in it. It's kind of hard to see, but there was a few that snuck their way in.
Wait, that's not their way in.
Well, like they're in there, like
Yeah.
they're put in. Stinky tofu. So I don't know if you've heard of it, but we didn't always know what it was for the first bit of the trip. We'd smell this awful scent, and we were just like, "What is that?" And finally, Miss Chen like read what it was for us, and we were like, "Oh my God, that's what it was! It was stinky tofu. It was just this horrendous smell coming from these stands." And this kid in our class name was Aiden. He was the bravest one to actually buy it and try it. No one else wanted anything to do with it. So I can't tell you what it tasted like because I didn't taste it.
I can
But-
tell you what it tastes like.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's delicious. But you might need to grow up with it for it to be
Yeah,
delicious.
definitely. One of my favorite places that we got to eat was this place where we got to make hot pots. We had a little dial and we got to cook everything in front of us. We got the meat and everything and just throw it in and make the soup ourselves. Do yourself tea. So we were drinking tea during the entire trip. Some of it was good, some of it was not so good, but this was probably the best. We got to make it ourselves. It was one of the first places we went. We like grinded up all the herbs and we made it, and we all got to share. It was delicious. This was a memorial that we got to go to. It was this big hall. It was like a museum too, and it really showed off kind of the architecture that was kind of all around Taiwan.
Alright. Ding, 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 ding. History lesson interruption. What time do you have to leave? You're okay. Alright. Ding, ding, ding. History lesson interruption. Or rather, cool sidebar. You guys are going to learn about the Civil War that occurred in China. Alright? So basically what happened was, raise your hand if you've heard of Mao Zedong. Okay, good. If you read Revolution is Not a Dinner Party, Mao Zedong is the dictator in that. So Mao Zedong is basically like the George Washington of communist China. He's the general who led all the armies to victory and established the country in the 1950s, right? He was fighting against a guy named Chiang Kai-shek. I need everybody to try to say these two names because they're so important in Chinese history. So Mao Zedong, say it.
Mao Zedong.
And then Chiang Kai-shek.
Chiang Kai-shek.
Excellent. I appreciate how hard you tried to do that. So these two guys were the two generals that were leading the army. So they were leading, fighting. The nationalists were led by Chiang Kai-shek, and they were actually in power already. And the communists were led by Mao Zedong, and they were like in the countryside, getting their farmers together to try to take over stuff and getting support in the cities as well. So they were fighting, and what happened was World War II came along. and the Japanese invaded China. So when the Japanese invaded China, then the nationalists and the communists decided to work together because they both hated the Japanese invading China. And at the end of World War II, they were able to get the Japanese out after much, much bloodshed. You may have heard of, there's a really famous experience called the Rape of Nanking, which is basically where the Japanese came in and just slaughtered hundreds of thousands of Chinese people. So they got the Japanese out, and then what did they do? They went right back to their civil war. Okay? So Mao Zedong ended up leading the Communist Party to victory, and they chased the nationalists out of mainland China and onto the island of Taiwan, which is where Tai was traveling. And once they got to Taiwan, they said, look, we're not going to chase you anymore. Stay on that island. We're going to run China, mainland China now, okay? We're going to let you go to that island. And so what happened was Taiwan actually was supported by the United States because the United States was supporting Chiang Kai-shek, right? You guys remember when we talked about Korea and Vietnam, how there was these wars over communism? So Taiwan got a huge influx of money from the United States and a ton of support. And Taiwan, like South Korea, is now a very developed nation with a good economy and democracy. It looks a lot like the United States. So here's what's super interesting about this. China still owns Taiwan, according to international law, because it was part of China. So even though it has a totally different government and a very different way of life, China still claims what's called sovereignty over it, all right? Now the United States has supported Taiwan for all these years. So here's one thing that's really important about this story. When you think about what could send the world into global sort of turmoil, there's about 5 different places that can send the world into global turmoil, all right? One of them is China and Taiwan. If China decided to forcibly take back Taiwan, the United States would have a huge decision about whether to get involved militarily or not, okay? That could lead to huge global struggle. Some of the other ones, we're gonna go straight back to Tai. We're gonna talk more about China and Taiwan. Some of the other ones, India and Pakistan, the Middle East and Israel, Europe and Russia, and South Korea and North Korea. Those are all places where if something big happened, the United States would have to get involved, and that could lead to global turmoil. All right, but China and Taiwan, super important. So when you look at this memorial right here, that is a memorial to Chiang Kai-shek, because he's the one who he lost the war, but he went to Taiwan, and he rebuilt there, and now he's sort of like the George Washington of Taiwan. All right.
So before we went on the trip, we had pen pals that we wrote to, not super often, but we definitely got to write to them and kind of talk to them a little bit. We got to go to their school during our trip and meet our pen pals. So it was a performing arts school, so a lot of them were either really, really, really good musicians, or acrobats, or kind of just crazy artists. So it was really cool to meet them and see what they were doing. So we were spending a lot of time on the bus, like hours at a time, traveling from place to place. And this is what a lot of looking out the window looked like. There's a lot of rice fields, a lot of mountains. So this was Sun Moon Lake, where the bus was parked in the lot. That was over here, and we took a boat over to this island where we could hike around, do the sightseeing. On the island, there was this old lady that had been making tea eggs for a super long time. There was a super long line. We would buy the tea eggs or eggs soaked in tea.
Tea eggs are
So
definitely good.
Yeah.
Not like sneaky tofu. You can
Yeah.
enjoy tea eggs without growing up with them. Hey, Fantasia, good to see you.
Some more hikes that we got to go on near a lake. And then this was really cool. We got to go on go climb this like rock. There's this like long hike that we went on, and to get to the rock we had to cross this bridge. It's super long.
That's a nice photo. Who took that?
I'm pretty sure Miss Cheng took that.
Got some photography down.
Yeah. And so it was a really long bridge actually. We went all the way over here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool how it goes up and down.
Yeah. And then one of the final places we went to was a hot spring, and so it really showed like the kind of tropical area of Taiwan. And so there was like monkeys above us, and this isn't just a pool; like, it's all mountain water. It smells like sulfur, so it's kind of kind of gross at first, but you kind of get used to it and it's really nice. Fish foot massages. So I really didn't like this. I didn't like the feeling on my feet, but a lot of people really enjoyed it, where they got the fish to suck their feet and get all like the grime off. Yeah, so that's it.
All right, huge round of applause. That was awesome. All right. So we're going to go ahead and have Ty field your questions now. You can ask questions about Berkeley High if you want. You can ask questions about the Chinese class. You can ask questions about his travel, whatever you want. Every kid has to come up with at least one question. So we'll go ahead and write up those different topics again. Everybody can come up with a question about Berkeley High. You also can ask questions about Chinese class. You can also ask a question about travel. And then, of course, you can also ask any personal question that you want, but Ty is allowed to say no. All right, turn to your partner right now, so you can come up with 2 or 3 questions. Go, go. What are your grades?
Country, and I get to compete with over 100 countries.
All right. Now everybody's got a chance to raise their hand. Every single person should have a question. Oh, what an awesome class on that side. Good job.
Okay, so what are all your periods, and what grade are you in?
So I'm in 10th grade. There's 6 classes right now. I'm taking AP Java. So I'm an AP test soon. Programming. I'm taking English and history, world history right now, and literature. I'm taking Chinese as well as math. It's kind of common core math now, so it's kind of right there. Okay. Yeah.
So from your, you play water polo?
Yeah, so I played 2 sports at Berkeley High. I played a lot of sports here before, and I didn't play any of them at Berkeley High. So I played like track, I did cross country, basketball here, flag football, and then at Berkeley I'm only playing 2 sports. I'm playing lacrosse right now, and water polo season just finished, so I played that as well.
How many kids are in the Chinese class?
So for my class is slightly larger than the other ones. So my class, it's kind of split into 2 parts because of the core classes like conflicting with each other, but it could be all one class. So my class is tiny, the other class is a little bit larger. So mine's like 9 kids, and the other one's like 25 or something like that. Yeah.
For the 2 years that you've been there, how fluent do you think you are?
Well, the first year is a lot of kind of learning about the country and kind of getting a basic understanding of the language and kind of picking up on it. This year, you're really kind of just learning a lot of Chinese and kind of getting everything that's getting thrown at you. So I'm learning a lot more this year. I don't know how fluent I am, but I'm definitely learning a lot quicker, and I can see by next year I'm going to know a lot of Chinese because of how fast it's kind of starting to move. Yeah?
Can you say a Chinese sentence and explain it?
Sure. 我叫王琦，我去学校在 Berkeley 高中，or Berkeley 高中 yeah. So I said my name is Ty. I go to Berkeley High School. Yeah.
What's your favorite project that you've done in Chinese class?
My favorite project. I think it might have been the one where we built the 3D house, because I don't know. I did an iSearch project here in 8th grade about architecture, and I did a SketchUp project building a house, and so that was kind of exciting to be able to take that into Chinese class, so I made an entirely new one. So that was really cool. Yeah.
Do you have a girlfriend? And if so, what's her name?
No, I don't.
What was your favorite place to go to in Taiwan?
My favorite place to go to, I think it's between the hot springs or the hike with the bridge you saw. We got to climb the rocks.
What was your favorite food that you ate there?
My favorite food. The shaolin bao was delicious. I always love that. Yeah, it's probably my favorite thing. Yeah.
So when you were here at King, did you ever have a moment where you didn't like Miss Jokela?
You're asking good questions today.
Mr. Jokela was a really great teacher, or he's still a really great teacher.
I'm not dead yet.
I don't think I had a time where I didn't like Mr. Jokela. There was definitely times where I was like, man, I really have to do this. But I mean, I always saw the benefits of what he was doing at the end.
I don't give you any assignments I don't care about. That's
Yeah, but they all have meaning.
I think you have a class in common with my brother, August Noah. No?
Yeah, I think so. I think math actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brother? When you were here at King, did you like anyone?
Oh god.
Yeah.
You don't have to
What
answer
do
that
you
question.
think, Niall?
All right, great guys. Can you guys give Ty a round of applause, please? A couple things. One, if you are in Spanish or French right now, that's fantastic. You do not have to stay with Spanish or French. There are plenty of people who go, oh, that was fun. I want to take Chinese in high school. You can totally do that. Don't feel like just because you have started something, you can't switch, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is, I actually have a question about the retention rates. So people who start with Chinese, do they generally tend to go through all 4 years? Like, how does that work?
Generally, people make it through the first 3 years, like almost all of them usually do. And then AP is kind of a really big step. It's like the decision to take AP or not. And Miss Chen does a really, really good job of trying to get you to take that AP class. And she's really persistent, kind of making you feel that it'll really benefit you, which it will. So AP is kind of the biggest drop off, but yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6. Usually a lot of the kids kind of stick through it.
Great. So a lot of times you can tell whether something's a good program based on its retention. Retention is like whether people decide to keep going through it. And my intuition is that Chinese has a very high retention rate, where once people go in there, they stick with it because of that community aspect of it.
I have like 2 questions. One is, can you do both languages?
I don't think you can choose 2 languages because you need elective credits as well, and so you need also language credits. So you're going to be doing language credits as well as doing elective credits. And if you're just doing both, then I don't think you have enough time
Yeah.
to get your elective credits.
I haven't heard of anybody taking 2 languages in high school. You can take the language in college. Like my brother Tibin, he took, I don't know, he probably took Spanish in high school, and then he ended up taking Chinese in college. So he was in some ways smarter than I was because I didn't. But I don't think you can in high school, unfortunately. I mean, I think that when you're making your choice between languages in high school, they're all useful. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that. I think when you think about the fact that you're going to be taking a language for 3 or 4 years, the question really should be, where do you want to spend, thousands of hours? Do you want to spend it, in Spanish class, which is great, likely to be larger, you know what I'm saying? You'll have different teachers at different times, but you'll also be interacting with lots of different kids. Or do you want to spend it in a smaller setting, right? Do something original, then you'll have that experience as well. Neither is better than the other. Does that make sense? The reason I'm so passionate about making sure you hear this perspective is not because I think you should take Chinese instead of Spanish. I want to be really clear on that. It'll make me personally happy because I think it's really interesting. I happen to be half Chinese, but you shouldn't take a language because your half Chinese teacher in middle school told you to, right? The reason I want you to know about it is because everybody knows about Spanish and French, but not everybody knows that this program even exists. And I actually want to establish some sort of form of communication with Ms. Chen at some point, with you spearheading that, where she has a way to come down and start telling kids in 6th grade before they make their decision And I also am working really hard to try to get them to offer Chinese here. I've talked to Ms. Levinson about it, because I think you'd get a lot more kids knowing that if they had that option here. Yeah.
Is Japanese a language?
Do they offer Japanese at Berkeley High?
It was really cool, but
No, I don't think they offer at Berkeley High.
Do they offer Cantonese?
no. So we have a lot of Cantonese students in our class actually learning Chinese.
Good question.
Do they offer Arabic?
I don't think they offer Arabic. I think the main languages they offer are Spanish, French, German, Chinese, Mandarin, and there might be one more I'm not remembering.
I think they also offer like Swahili, but it's not
Yeah.
listed as like a language class for some reason.
Yeah, I think there's.
Alright, great. Give Ty a round of applause. Thank you, Ty. I will compliment you again. That was really, really good. I definitely want to take you into a 6th grade classroom. So I'll look for a teacher that might be able to do that on a Monday morning. And then I actually want to film it. I want to film it when you go to the 6th grade classroom, because then I can use the video of you